It started with one cable and the wrong assumption he'd stay quiet. Cal Becker didn't blink. He'd seen worse lies burn slower. Me? I'd have snapped by the second word. Not when she screamed, not when the cable cracked against his porch light, not when every neighbor turned to stare. She called him a thief, out loud, twice. He just stood there, arms folded, eyes fixed on the wire still sparking near her feet. Behind him, a rusted sign. Private circuit, do not use. Still bolted, still ignored. Above, the red light on the wall camera blinked once, then again, recording everything. He sipped his coffee, no words, no wince, but he was counting, and she just passed one. He didn't move right away, not because he was frozen, but because too many things had just aligned. The porch, the scorch mark near the socket, the echo of her voice still ringing where it shouldn't. Cal Becker wasn't a man who chased problems. He fixed things, quietly, properly. The charging port she yanked that morning, his father installed it in '87, cut, leveled, sealed by hand. He remembered the sound of that final screw. The old man didn't say much either. 3 weeks before he died, Cal stood by that wall, watching him replace a fuse. The box was crooked. His dad smiled once, adjusted it, then knocked it twice. "You don't fix wires, Cal," he'd said. "You fix what people let rot." This house wasn't for sale, never was. And that socket on the sidewall, it wasn't just hardware, it was a line. Crossing it wasn't just theft, it was trespass. There was a screwdriver in the mailbox, same one since he was 17. Flathead, worn tip, wood handle half split. People stopped noticing it. He never did. Above the socket, a brass plaque, Becker Electric, established 1987. Faded, scratched, still bolted. She hadn't looked up, but Cal did. And now that she'd touched what shouldn't be touched, he wouldn't raise his voice. He'd raise the proof. And when it landed, she'd understand what legacy really costs. It came on a Thursday. No knock, no voice. Just a folded notice tucked neatly between the slats of Cal's front gate. No letterhead, no greeting. Just 4 words at the top. Homeowner Energy Compliance Review. The paper was warm from the sun, but the signature at the bottom was dated a month before the file itself existed. Joel Eastman, Vice Chair, HOA, Energy Standards Committee. That title hadn't existed last season. Now it was stamped in blue, bold, and above it, compliance is not optional. Cal didn't tear it down. He didn't even blink. He read it, folded it, and slid it back through the gate, face up on the doormat. Then, his hand lifted, not to the notice, but to the wall camera, just 2 fingers resting near the lens, like someone tapping the edge of a chess clock. Across the street, a young man paused, mid-walk, leash in hand, earbuds half in. He looked at Cal, then at the paper, then back again. He didn't wave, didn't ask, but his eyes paused twice. First, confusion. Second, memory. This wasn't the first paper drop he'd seen, just the first one on Cal's property. The form said it was about grid alignment, shared energy responsibility, protecting neighborhood sustainability. Nice words, soft tone, but Cal saw what was under it. They weren't checking wires, they were measuring obedience, testing if he'd flinch, if he'd open the door and let them in. But Cal didn't open. He never opened first. He simply turned, walked back inside, left the paper where they'd left their message, and marked the date on a yellow legal pad by the window. Day 1, move 1, the game had begun. Some of you might have paused, right at the moment he folded the paper. I've been there. When silence feels heavier than shouting. When you know you could react, but choose to remember instead. If that part stayed with you, leave a line below. Sometimes one calm reply speaks louder than noise. And if you want more stories like this, you know where to find them. The next notice didn't come to his door. It landed in everyone's inbox. Subject line, Energy Grid Adjustment for Compliance. Sent by Joel Eastman. Signed off by the HOA board, minus dates, minus vote logs. The message was civil, professional. Due to imbalances in external power draws, it read, non-regulated outlets will be temporarily suspended from prioritized grid access. Attached, a colored map, hand-edited, conveniently redefined. Cal's block, painted gray, labeled non-compliant, secondary review required. She'd drawn a new power border and quietly erased him from it. He didn't reply, didn't forward, didn't protest. Instead, that night, at exactly 11:42, Cal walked to the side of his garage, connected a cable to the backup port, and waited. His load sensor, hidden inside the weatherproof panel, blinked twice, then again. Tiny red flashes, syncing with every kilowatt drawn past midnight. It wasn't just recording, it was writing files, hour by hour, label by label. Joel test run 01.move. Joel test run 02.move. He had 17 so far. There was a line in her hand-edited map, small font, barely visible. Power loop accessible via Cal's west wall plug. Not a mistake, an invitation, or maybe a dare. Cal printed that map, framed just the line, hung it beside the actual socket, right below the vintage wood plaque, West Circuit, 1951. He was wiping it clean when a boy rode by on his bike, stopped. "Why are you hanging that sign?" Cal didn't answer, just polished the corner once more, revealing smaller text underneath. Private circuit, established by city ordinance. The kid blinked, pedaled on. Only the camera above saw Cal pause, step back, and nod once, as if saying, "Keep drawing your maps, I've got the original blueprint." At 7:04 a.m. the email went out. Subject, surge alert, safety loop, triggered 12:03 a.m. from Cal Becker. 2. Every resident in the HOA group, Thread CC HOA board. It was short, measured, cold. There was an unusual spike near the West Circuit at 12:03 a.m. This may indicate a misused plug-in or an unverified connection to private circuits. Please check your equipment for any possible faults. Attached, a cropped screenshot. Load graph, timestamp, the faint outline of a cable tip caught by the sensor camera, looping into a socket on his west wall. Blurry, but familiar to someone who knew it too well. Cal didn't say a name, didn't accuse, didn't need to. Guilt, after all, hears its own name. That same morning, he passed the HOA office. No words, no pause. Just a manila envelope slipped into the slot. Inside, a printed ordinance dated 1986. Private circuits exempt from shared HOA jurisdiction. Code 12B. Stamped, sealed. City archive, watermark intact. By noon, no one had responded, but in the silence, things shifted. At the weekend community meeting, Joel's voice broke first. Somebody here is making false claims to avoid compliance. The room was still, then a voice. Old, even, a woman Cal once fixed a breaker for. He never said a word. Maybe it's guilt talking, not him. No one laughed, but heads turned, eyes moved. Joel's breath caught. Then she snapped, just a bit too loud, just a bit too sharp. The crack showed. Later that night, in the HOA group chat, a message blinked in. From the girl next door. So, if I plug into his outlet by accident, is that a city code thing? No replies, but 5 minutes later, a new message from the HOA chair. Previous circuit map is under review. Use standard layout until further notice. Cal never typed a word, but the trap was set, and the room was getting quieter. Not because he won, but because the one making the most noise suddenly felt very alone. 2 days later, the email came. Notice of violation, unauthorized power rerouting from Joel Eastman. To all residents, CC, HOA board. Residents found tampering with shared infrastructure may face suspension of privileges and be subject to penalties under HOA resource use guidelines, Section 4. C. Her words were sharp, formal, final. She attached a document, her own drafted policy, bolded at the top. All external circuits fall under collective jurisdiction unless otherwise certified. It sounded airtight. It wasn't. At 2:11 p.m., Cal forwarded one email, subject line untouched, body unchanged, timestamp, 4 months ago. From Joelle herself. Per our review, the eastern wall plug is a private circuit and not subject to HOA oversight. Feel free to proceed with your upgrade. Her signature, her tone, her undoing, no commentary, no follow-up, just sent. A minute passed, then 5, then replies started, none from California. At the emergency HOA meeting that weekend, the room filled fast. Cal stood near the back, hands in pockets, a padded envelope under his arm. The chair read the email aloud, twice, then looked at Joelle. Ms. Eastman, do you recall writing this? She stood too quickly, snatched the paper, voice rising. That wasn't meant to cover this situation. Silence. Someone cleared their throat. A board member, voice calm. But it does. And it's signed. The room froze. Behind Joelle, the projector screen flickered. A still frame appeared from Cal's security cam. Tesla, charging. Then, that flicker, that smoke. No video, just the image. A frame of truth, not yet spoken, but already louder than her shouting. Joelle turned to look, her mouth half open. She sat down. Cal stepped forward once, placed the envelope on the table. Inside, the printed email, and the electrical lock he'd removed earlier that week. He didn't say a word, didn't have to, because the room had already turned, not by argument, but by gravity. And for the first time, Joelle wasn't leading it. She was sinking, in her own words, in the law she thought she'd owned, in the silence of a man who let her talk, until her lies ran out of breath. The meeting ended before noon. No one spoke to Cal on his way out. They didn't need to. He walked the long way home, past the lot line, past the driveway where black streaks still marked the concrete. The house was quiet. Even the trees seemed stiller than usual. He stood beside the panel. The old wooden sign lay on the ground, scorched on one corner, chipped where it had been ripped down. He picked it up, brushed the dust off with his palm, ran his thumb along the edge, didn't flinch at the burn mark. It wasn't shame, it wasn't pride, just memory. He didn't repaint it, didn't replace the screws, just lifted it back onto the post, tightened the old bracket with the same rusted wrench his father once used. Private circuit, EST. 1982, still faded, still firm. Behind him, somewhere up the hill, an engine started, a car being towed. He didn't turn around. A boy rode by on a bike, slowed at the gate. "That's your sign?" he asked. Cal looked down, then back up at the sky. "It was," he said. "Still is." The boy nodded, didn't ask more, just rode on. Wind picked up. The metal plate rattled gently in its frame. The sound wasn't loud, just enough to be heard by anyone walking past. A sound that meant, this space is kept. This line was drawn. No warning needed, no voice raised. No one had to see the fight, only the result. The sign stayed. The silence stayed. But now everyone knew what it meant. Not everyone fights to win. Some just make sure. No one touches what they kept alive for too long. Some fights don't leave bruises. They leave small, quiet proofs. A burnt edge. A screw that won't tighten like it used to. A boy's question, asked once, then never again. Cal never raised his voice, but the ground he stood on remembered. Old wiring, older promises. Signs nailed in when things were built to stay. Not all things are meant to be defended, but some deserve not to be touched. He didn't paint over the damage, he framed it. Left it there, so others would think twice. Because sometimes the sharpest answer is to do nothing fast. Only the right thing, slowly. So everyone sees. In a world loud with claims, one man's silence can still hold the final word.